Welcome to Grit with Wisdom. This is the podcast that delves deep into the inner psyche of mountain bikers from all walks of life in order to discover the tools and the tactics that can help us have more fun out on the trails more often. Our aim here is to help you understand what it takes to push our own personal boundaries in the sport we love from a mental and emotional perspective. Today on the show, we have Lewis Buchanan. For those that don't already know, Lewis is a professional mountain biker who has seen many successes on the world stage in both downhill and enduro disciplines. Based in the mountain biking paradise of Innerleithen on the Scottish borders, Lou has been a pro for over 14 years since the age of 15. In a testament to his strength and longevity to not only keep getting great results year after year, he also has no problem doing the uncommon and stepping outside of the industry norms and his comfort zone, as we have seen with some of his recent sponsorship deals. We dig into the mentality behind this, some of the adversity that he's faced, as well as his awesome YouTube channel, which he continues to grow with interesting behind the scenes footage depicting life as a pro mountain biker. Enjoy. Hey, Lewis, welcome to the Grit with Wisdom podcast, man. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here sitting down for a chat today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Like I said, getting in touch with me is something that's cool for me. It was good to see you reaching out, and I have actually, no joke, listened to some of your stuff before. I really like the mountain biking side, but I like listening to the other side of it as well, and people that are kind of got a different, that's not a professional mountain biker or isn't a mountain biker. Like, it's interesting to read and listen to all that stuff. So I'm happy to be a part of that for sure.
Oh man, it's an absolute honor to hear that you've been listening along and enjoying that. And I've got to say, I agree. Like, it's so cool getting to sit down from my perspective with people from kind of all different backgrounds within mountain biking and seeing kind of, what tools people are using, what differences there is, and that kind of thing. So I know, you've just got back from Chile recently. So welcome home. It looks like you were lucky to make it out alive from the Red Bull Valparaíso there. How was that, man?
Yeah, that was a crazy event. First time for me doing something like that. I was so unprepared. I can't remember the last time I rode down a set of stairs. Honestly, probably when I was like 8, 9 years old. So we have nothing like that around here. And just like everything was new to me. Bike was new, track was new, schedule, everything. It was such a learning experience, but probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Like, the culture was insane. The people are lovely, welcoming. The fans are mental over there. So it was just all in all really good experience, really tough, mentally and physically. Like I said, I hadn't prepared or anything for it. So it was just like the mentality I went there with was like, go there, be a sponge, absorb every bit of like information I can on how to learn this course in the very limited time I had. Qualify. If I could qualify, that's great. If not, I'm just happy to be here. If I qualify, that's amazing. That's a bonus. I get to be part of the race and the live feed, and ended up qualifying, and which was cool. And then just wanted to get one run down in one piece, and I did that. So amazing experience, but definitely happy to be home. And because I was only there for like 3 days, it was literally in, practice, race, out. A long way to go just for 3 days, basically, or 2.5 days. But amazing experience. I would 100% do it again for sure.
Man, it's so cool that you put yourself out of your comfort zone there in so many ways. New bike, new race, new terrain, new culture.
Yeah,
It's awesome. Yeah.
yeah. It was like just another learning curve, another learning experience, and I was definitely out of my comfort zone in, like you said, more than one way. Like the practice, I can't. It's not like we had 1 day of practice it's like we have an hour of practice. Like it was literally an hour to 2 hours of practice, and I got 2 runs on the stair set. That was it, like the long stair set next to the barrier. My first run was rolling through it, and then my second run was like, right, I have to pull the trigger on these gaps if I want
Jeez.
to be somewhat competitive. So it was almost like I had no option. Like I either like take the risk and try and jump these stair sets, or I just roll through them, and it's kind of not really any fun doing that, and I'm not going to stand a chance to qualify. So you're
Mm.
kind of backed up against the wall. You kind of just really got to do it. So that was quite stressful. And then on top of that, I'm like trying to do content and trying to like, you know, get decent footage that I can use. And at the time, that's not like the priority. You're like trying to be really mentally aware of like what you're doing, where you're at. Like it was crazy stressful, but at the same time, crazy cool. So, like I said, I would do it again, but I need a little bit more preparation somehow.
Yeah, like what would you do different next time looking back on kind of, the weeks before the race?
I think I would go out there a little bit earlier. A lot of the guys that race there are like super competitive, like Thomas Slavic and the guys that podium. Uh, like look at their social media. That's kind of all they ever ride is stair
Mm.
sets and concrete. So I'd quite like to go out maybe a week before and just get like acclimatized and used to that kind of terrain. And bike setup too was really tough. That first practice run at that race was the first time I rode the bike, and a lot
So
of
you're
people
on
don't
a
believe that. Like a lot of people don't believe that, but that's legit the truth. Um, so I was like trying to set up the bike and focus on the track at the same time, but suspension setup was just I went with the mentality of just stiffer suspension, so more pressure, and then 40 psi in front and rear of my tires,
well,
which was, I mean, I've never had that experience before, that feeling. So it was definitely an adjustment for sure. I only just got to ride the Nuke Proof on dirt
yeah, so it's
yesterday.
a brand new nuke proof mega, right?
Nuke Proof Giga. Yeah, Nuke Proof Giga 297. So it's 29 front wheel, 27 and a half rear wheel. It's been fun, but I've not really spent that much time on it. I've done the street race and then a couple rides today and yesterday, and it's a fun bike. It's been cool for
That's
sure.
great, man. That's so
Yeah.
cool to hear. We'll dig into, some of your different bikes a little bit later. But I know, watching some of your videos, which I totally recommend everyone goes and does after listening to this if they haven't yet seen the videos of that race, because it is wild, even through the lens of a GoPro. I know there was a lot of people commenting, kind of asking, about your bike setup and your tire compound and stuff like this. I'm curious, did you run, regular mountain bike tire? Were you using a Cush core or was it just like 40 PSI and that's your barrier there?
I ran regular mountain bike tires like I would when I'm riding on the dirt. Delium have like more faster rolling tires, the tread, but I don't think the casing is as tough. So it was so last minute, this whole bike that came together, that I didn't really have time to for Delium. Like I didn't want to put too much pressure on them on getting me stuff. So I went with what I knew. I did run Cushcore front and rear. That's an absolute like felt like that was a necessity. Like I needed that for the cushioning. So it wasn't so much for rim protection. Like Envy are already like they have their own little rim technology, like the rim strip technology. So I feel like that does its job. But the Cushcore is like good for vibration dampening, I think, and
Mm.
it definitely gave me a little bit more trust going down the stairs. But the setup was I didn't even know if it was right. I was just like, I think I'm doing the right thing here by maxing out all my pressures. And I think it did work out. I slowed the rebound down on my bike quite a lot. Um, because there's a lot of like the stairs are actually quite close together. So you're there's not much reaction time for the bike to kind of come back. So I slowed the rebound down a lot. And other than that, that's just what I went with. A lot of the guys had semi-slick tires on, and some people were even cutting down mountain bike tires. So like I saw a lot of riders with Maxxis Minion tires, and they were chopping the knobs off the tire, so they were like bald.
That's so
And
interesting.
I was like, wow, like I am so far off. Like
Huh.
these guys have it figured out. Um,
So they want that sticky compound, but they don't necessarily want the chunky tread.
yeah, like I felt like when I was cornering, the knobs on the tires, like you can only corner so much till they give way. So I was in that boat, whereas they were like their knobs on the tires were really round because they chopped them, so they were basically just able to lean over, and there was no sliding going on.
Yeah, I see. More like a BMX tire.
Yeah, 100%. So these are things, all things that I picked up and learned on, and I'm like, right, well, if I have the opportunity next year to do this, I'll try and apply some of those. Um, and I think I would be more comfortable. But I think your first time doing anything like that, you're always going to be like a bit shocked and a bit, thrown in the deep end, really, which I feel like I was. Um, but I did love it, and yeah, it was a really good time. Loved every second of it.
Totally, man. It's so cool to hear, a little bit of the behind the scenes there and, some of the challenges you face, but you still come out with this smile on your face and like, right, if I get the chance to do this again, exactly
Yeah,
what I'm going to do. I love it. I
yeah,
want to dial things back a little bit here and talk a little bit, about your history. So you're
yeah.
originally from Edinburgh, there in Scotland. What was it like growing up there, and when did you start riding bikes?
Growing up in Edinburgh was, I, from what I remember, honestly, just remember being like, to me, like a normal kid. Like I was always excited about doing stuff. Like I wasn't necessarily like interested in really anything at that particular time. Like I went to school, like primary school at obviously a young age, but the area that we grew up in, 100% didn't cater to any outdoor sports. It was quite a rough neighborhood. Um, and obviously like thankful that we kind of moved away from that area, because I believe if I'd stayed there as a kid, I probably would have been dragged into, whatever was going on there. It was bad. So my mum's dad lived in the Scottish borders in Innerleithen, and we just came now and then to visit. And I guess I didn't really quite know what was going on. I wasn't really too fussed um, what was going on here in Innerleithen, but I guess my mum and dad really took a liking to the area. And pretty much within a click of the fingers, they decided they wanted to get out of the city and be somewhere that's like a bit more slow paced, more relaxed, quieter. So they made that decision, and I guess I really didn't have a choice or an option. So we moved here, and from what I can remember, maybe been here since I was 9 years old, and I'm 29, 30 this year. So I've been here quite a while. And yeah, we basically moved here. I went to primary school here and then high school and left from there. But I've been here a while, and I definitely think it's improved not just my life and upbringing, but my parents for sure as well. Um, Definitely found home, or I'd call it home here for sure. Um, but I don't really remember much from Edinburgh, if I'm honest. Um, the city's amazing. Edinburgh is one of my favorite cities, and I spent a bit of time there about a week ago, a couple of days there, and it was really good. But as a kid, I can't remember being there and spending much time. We were kind of on the outskirts of the city, really, and I just remember kind of going about my day as a kid. Like I'd play outside and do stuff, but there was a point where I'd have to come in the evening because stuff kind of got a little bit sketchy out there. Like there was teenagers and stuff setting cars on fire and cars.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember one particular time and it was pretty scary. So we're definitely in a calmer place now.
totally, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
yeah,
ups to your parents for making that move to the mountains there.
yeah.
For
I
those that
honestly,
don't know, the Scottish borders there is kind of a bit of an outdoor hub, isn't it? You've got lots of mountain biking, lots of hiking, things like this.
yeah. When we moved here, it was. I wouldn't even say it was popular. I'd just say it was a destination that mountain biking events came to at that point. I don't really because there's the trail network that's here now. People from all over the world in the UK and stuff come here. But back then, when I was like 10, 11 years old, there was no one really coming for a weekend of riding. Um, it was more just for like they have downhill trails here, so an event organization will come here, host an event, leave. Whereas now it's insane how busy the place has got, and
Totally, man. I think
one.
that's almost like a sorry, I think it's almost like a worldwide phenomenon, isn't it? Like mountain
Mm,
biking has exploded to such a point where it now is this, giant machine for tourism, and then all the towns and the destinations that go along with that are so much more popular as well.
yeah, it's been crazy to see the progression of the place. It's still very small though. I think the town can get quite overwhelmed by the traffic and people that come here. Which the locals, I think they kind of like it, but the infrastructure around here, like it just somehow just needs to be more of it and to cater for that demand. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's not something that can just happen at the click of a finger. It's like money and planning and everything has to be involved. So um, I think in the next, I don't know, 5 years there'll be a big jump. In my, just having a guess, but um, it's yeah, there's not, more bike shops are opening as well. Like there's three now within like you can get from one to the other in like 30 seconds or a minute. So there's definitely a demand for it, and I guess we'll see where it goes in the next few years.
Yeah, man, it sounds like exciting times ahead.
Hmm.
So moved there to Interlathum when you were about 9. When did you start riding bikes?
Um, when I think late late primary school, so when I went kind of transitioning from primary school to high school, um, it was all such a kind of a blur, if I'm honest. Like
Totally,
my one
man.
of
You
my
don't have to give me an exact answer by all
yeah,
means.
one of my friends at the time, Robbie, I think he got a bike first, and I had rode a bike in the past, but I wasn't really interested in, I didn't even really know what mountain biking was at that point. But because of the events that happen here, I think one day we went to watch one, and I was like, I was intrigued by it. It looked really cool. And I think my friend Robbie was the one that gave that push. Like he got a bike, a mountain bike, and he was kind of like, you should get one, you should try one. So I ended up doing that, getting one. And I just think I was so cliche. Like I've heard stories about it, like people getting into mountain biking, but I rode it and I was just hooked. And I just rode my bike every day. After school, like any opportunity I got. And would build tracks, would have made up races. Like it just snowballed like from one year to the next, to the next, to the next. And I just loved it. I remember just there was no vision, there was no goal. I was just riding, like legitimately just riding my bike for fun. And it consumed my life as a kid at that point. A lot of, I feel like kids, when you're younger, you have all these kind of dreams and aspirations of like, I want to become this, I want to become that. But I do remember, I don't even remember coming across anything like this is what I'd like to do, or I want to become a footballer or an astronaut or a fireman, or I just remember like so going with the flow. Like I played football a little bit, I was pretty good at that, but I just did it because I could, and it got me
Hmm.
outdoors. It got me mixing with people, and then mountain biking was like that, replaced that really essentially. Um, so yeah, it was all it just snowballed into more and more and more and more, and it did consume my life as a kid. But it was a really good thing for me at that time because if I wasn't doing that, who knows what I would be doing, hanging in the street, like causing chaos. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's so great to have that outlet. And
Yeah.
like you say, the community, meeting people there as
Mm.
well. So going from a kid who's just kind of riding for fun, you know, going with the flow, what was the defining moment for you when you were like, hey, I want to try racing?
When I turned 11 years old, I remember there was the UK like national downhill series. You had to be 12 years old to race, and obviously I was 11, so that wasn't really allowed. But somehow we managed to wangle, like, persuade the organizers, like, to let me in to race. So yeah, basically, I was 11 years old, and we somehow persuaded them to let me in.
Oh, that's awesome. Sneak your way in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I take it when you first started racing, it was the same thing, just like having fun with your buds, pushing yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I just
Do
remember being like quite nervous, but only nervous because I didn't really know what was going on.
hmm.
Um, and I remember like the I was racing against Danny Hart. Like I was in the same like category as him. We were starting literally a couple places apart, and I just yeah like remember seeing him and just being like, oh my God. Like, and he was 13 years old. So,
Okay. Yeah.
um, and then obviously like Josh Bryceland and like all these other guys are kind of like the category above me, but I'm like, it was just for fun. Like, my dad, like enjoyed it. It was a good opportunity for him to meet people too. So it's nice to get away together, and um, we just did it for pure fun, really. It was a hobby, like as a kid, and that's kind of all I ever thought it would be. In all honesty, at that point,
Yeah,
um,
totally. So I'm curious, can you like remember thinking back to maybe like a shift of perspective when you were, you know, decided, hey, maybe I'm gonna, you know, take this seriously and see what I can make out of it.
yeah, I think it was 2000, and so I started racing in 2005, and then 2009 was the year that really like I think I was 15 at that point, roughly. I think I was 15 years old. Um, and I just remember that year was like started to be it was like a progression, like a build up over the years. Um, when I raced my first ever year, I was like between seventh place and 12th place, say, in like the kids category.
Yeah.
And as the years went on, I went to like youth and then youth for 2 years, and then I went up to June, and then I was eventually going to move up to junior category. But 2009 was the year that I was doing races, and I was like, my times were pretty competitive with the elites, which I was like, kind of found a little bit crazy. At that point, I'd already started sort of training a little bit, not a crazy amount, but I was kind of like, next, I had in mind my head that the following year could be my first World Cup season, which was kind of crazy to think. But um, so yeah, I started winning a bunch in 2009, and then my times were like pretty good. Like there was races that like I think Brandon Fairclough won one of them, and I was really not that far off him, and I was 15 years old. And I think for myself and my dad, and they were kind of like, right, you kind of have a year to prove that you've got it, and then we're pulling the plug on support on you, which I feel like is completely fair. Like
Hmm.
They completely supported me and backed me and paid for everything as a kid. As any parent would do, I think, like for the kid at that point.
For sure. It must be tough for racing parents though, just the, the financial and time commitment as well. So yeah, big respect to your mum and dad for supporting you there.
Yeah, it was a lot. And
And how did you kind of take the pressure there of like, hey, I've got, 1 year to really test myself. Otherwise, I'm cut off. I'm not going to be able to afford to race anymore.
yeah, it was, I just remember it kind of being like not stressful, no pressure, because I was still, well, still today, I still enjoy what I do, but back then I was so like young and like didn't really understand pressure or like anything like that. So I was just pretty much winging it, having fun. And when I was doing that, I was doing well. So I
Great.
tried to keep
Yeah.
that tried to keep that as a trend, really, as far as a mental
That's
state.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah, ignorance is bliss sometimes. It would be great to go back and have that, child's brain of like, this is all just fun. That's the only thing that matters. So that kind of
100%.
leads into my next question. You spoke there a little bit about mental states that you try and emulate now. Do you have any other kind of key principles or techniques that you'll use to operate in a good mental state these days?
Um, I would say I've definitely become more aware within the last maybe year, couple years on like I feel like I'm very aware, self-aware of my own mental state and like how I act and how I react and act to situations, controversy, whatever. I was a very I feel like now I don't want to say selfish, but I think there has to be, well, in my just a personal opinion, if I don't have a certain amount of selfishness there, like I have to look after myself. I want to look after myself. I want to do what's best for me, whether people think that's right or wrong. Um, I just think I try and look after myself. Like you got to love and look after yourself first before you can like give your energy and stuff to people and I just try and look after myself, honestly, as far as like any rituals or like anything like that. There's nothing really like that. I just try and learn from experiences, take on other people's opinions. Like I don't necessarily think, if someone has an opinion, I don't think it's wrong and I don't think it's right. I just try and like balance it out. And obviously, like as of recently, I've been the guy that everyone's had an opinion about, and that's fine. But yeah, I've went through a lot of like adversity, and I think it can build someone and um shapes somebody. So yeah, without getting too waffly or too deep on it, I think it's the person I am now is because of like all the stuff I went through. And but as far as a kid when I was racing, everything did seem very easy. There was no social media, there was no pressure, nothing like that. But obviously
Yeah.
things change as time goes on.
Totally, man. Yeah. It's really cool to hear that, and I don't think it's selfish at all, taking a step back potentially and looking after yourself. I think it's sort of like having self-respect for yourself.
Yeah,
Because like you say there, if you've got that stuff in check, you're looking after yourself, you're in a good mental state, you're able to then, serve other people, put up awesome YouTube videos, reply to
yeah,
comments, all of these things, and potentially just go out there and do your job, which is riding your bike.
for sure.
Um, yeah, so do you think any of this adversity that you've faced, in the public eye, online or at events, has taught you some tools that you can then apply, in a tough situation on the bike?
Yeah, I think um it's is I've faced a ton of adversity like which comes with the sport like through injuries and stuff, right? Like
Mm,
being in some well dark holes like mentally after surgeries and stuff that um it just taught me like it's very easy at the time to be down and feel sorry and for yourself. And for me, like, I feel like I'm pretty mentally strong when it comes to that now after what I went through, like with my elbow surgery and stuff. It was, I didn't ride my bike for almost a year, and like that's a long time off a
Yeah.
mountain bike. I got pretty addicted to the painkillers and stuff that I was told to be on because they helped me like ease the pain, and the pain was so bad after the surgery. Um, and all these other things on top, like the elbow specialist and surgeons told I'd probably never race my bike at professional high level again.
Cheers.
So that's like real hard to listen to, or was hard to listen to. Um, but at that point, I was like, you know, they're probably saying the worst case scenario, and I'm just going to grab it and do everything I possibly can to get back on a bike. Like not necessarily sooner, but if I can return to competition at the highest level, that's my goal. And it was rough for a while. Like I do just remember not going outside and literally lying in my bed with an arm that I could not bend or move for like weeks.
Yes.
Um, so that was rough, and I think that scenario, like what I went through, just naturally just taught me how to deal with like that was really tough. And even recently, like trying not to talk about it a crazy amount anymore because I do feel like it's had its talking point, but like the whole controversy signing with OnlyFans, like it's a controversial brand,
Mm.
but I guess my goal is just that, to try and have people maybe pump the brakes a little bit and be like, don't be so quick to jump to conclusions. Maybe like education is really good. Like if you can just educate someone, and it's not been easy, but that comes with the territory of signing with a company like that.
Totally.
They're not a mountain biking brand, so not many people are familiar with it in that sense. But at the end of the day, I made a choice like for myself, and it's been mixed reviews, really. Behind the scenes, I just don't talk about it. Like, yeah, I've had a lot of stick for it, but and that's made my skin thicker, honestly. Like I'm very now like whatever. Like that's your opinion. That's fine. Like you
Yeah.
crack on with your life, I'll crack on with my life. Like um so yeah, I think just I try and just be a good person. Like to me, a good person is just someone who doesn't say stuff and talk behind people's backs, approachable. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and just I'll speak to anyone, I'll ride with anyone as long as they're not a douchebag to me.
Totally
Like
do.
just be a kind person. Like it's hard to put that into words, but just don't be
Oh,
nasty.
man, I love it. Kicking goals, in my opinion. And, I just love this notion of, standing up in the face of controversy and saying, hey, I've had some unfortunate circumstances come upon me, whether they be, from an injury or from other people's perspectives that they voice onto you, and then saying, hey, how can I use this energy to make myself stronger? That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
And,
for sure.
I think it is, really cool whenever someone does stand up in the face of adversity and do something different, something a little bit outside of the box, because ultimately, that's what moves things forward. If everyone kept, doing the same thing, same sponsors on the same bikes, on the same
Yeah,
trails, we're
yeah,
still going to
yeah.
be doing the same thing in 5 years' time. So really cool to hear there. I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of, your mindset and your philosophy when you're on the bike. You're not having to think about keyboard warriors or any of that
Yeah.
crap. You're on the bike, you're having fun. What does your self-talk look like on a good day versus what does it look like maybe when you're not having the best day on the bike?
Um, I think I can pull experiences from like when I was racing the EWS and stuff. Was I had so many up and down weird moments throughout my career that it's so it's so interesting like how the mind works and like what can make you tick and what's not good for you like on the day of a race. Like I learned through all that like when you're out racing an EWS, sometimes you're out on the bike for 8 hours, and it really matters what mood you're in and like the things you do throughout that day that get you through the day in a positive way and can reflect onto your riding. So I always used to try, and each stage was its own individual stage. If I made a mistake or crashed on one, you put it behind you. You don't dwell on it. You don't think about it. You don't try and make up time. Soon as you try and make up time for that mistake, the plan's already gone out the window. Like you're going to start doing stuff differently. You're going to start trying harder, making more mistakes. Then you get frustrated. Then you get pissed off. It just snowballs. So I tried that mentality and it just didn't work out, and switched that mentality to like, if you've got 7 stages, you have 7 chances, and you make a mistake on the first one, scrap that, look to the second one, like clean slate, attack it how you would normally attack it. But it's having that mentality to be able to like have a big crash on the first stage and put it literally at the back of your mind and restart for the second stage, and not even have that thought process in your head that things haven't went, off to the greatest start. But if you can put that behind you and focus on the next, say, 6 stages, you can salvage a race. But I do know a lot of people that dwell on that first stage, for example, and let it affect their day. So yeah, it's definitely for me. I feel like I know when things are going well too. So like if I'm doing a stage or a race and I'm in the zone, I have a really good, or used to anyway, when I raced EWS, was I could almost do my run and figure roughly out in my head where I would be position wise based off feeling. And I think a lot of the guys can do that and still could do it. I remember doing stages like I'd have a really good stage and I'd be like, I think that's going to be top 5, top 10. And I was honestly on the money there or thereabouts. And even with stages that were poor, you'd have an expectation of roughly where you were at. But yeah, it can be it's lonely out there. Like when you're cycling for 8 hours on the day, it really your mental state really matters. And I think
Hmm.
you're cycling around with like a bunch of other racers too. So most often the conversations are not even about bikes that we have, which is kind of good. So um, keeps you relaxed, and when you get to the start of the track, you focus on your job. But in between then, it's important to have a laugh, look out for each other. But yeah, I've been in many situations that are different. Some are really stressful um, races, and others are not so stressful. Like Hardline was stressful for me last 2 years ago.
I bet. And you were on an enduro bike there, right? Whereas a lot of guys are on DH bikes.
Yeah, and that was I was again all very similar to the street race thing, like just very new.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a stressful situation. I just was nervous and didn't really know how to handle it all because it was so alien to me.
Totally. Yeah, you've definitely got a great knack for just put yourself out of your comfort zone and embracing it.
Yeah,
Looking back on like the hard line, you're saying like, you're definitely feeling the nerves as imagined. These days, now that you've had that experience, do you have any kind of things that you'd be consciously trying to do when you felt similar nerves in a similar situation?
honestly, I think half of the reason why I've been nervous in situations like that is because of preparation. I just when you don't prepare, you just already are coming into that situation with you're on the back foot. So again, like the street race, if I had more preparation or understanding of what the tires were going to do on the concrete, I would be more laid back and I'm expecting to know what it feels like. But
Hmm.
when you're not prepared, that's not great. but you just have to get on with it and do it. So for me, I just feel like I'm kind of like, I just roll with the emotions. Like if I'm feeling good and I'm not having any troubles, chances are I'm going to be able to focus on my riding and myself and not the external things. But obviously, there's situations when things don't go your way, you're not prepared, and I just roll with it. I try and not get too uptight about it. If I stress about it, it just makes it worse.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people like do certain things, or sometimes I'll talk to myself. Like I think that's quite a common thing,
Totally. Yeah, I know.
but self motivation and tell yourself something enough, you'll end up believing it. So
That's it, man. It's like, yeah, thoughts shape our feelings and they shape our actions. So
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
really cool to hear. And if you don't mind sharing, I know I'm kind of going deep here, but what kinds of things would you be telling yourself in a state like that when you're trying to refocus and get yourself back into a good state?
Um, I think again, it's kind of like a cliche thing, but I always remember when I trained properly and I was conditioned properly and I knew I could go the distance and I had the skill, I had the fitness. If something went wrong, I would always tell myself like to not to give up, like it's never over until it's over. Like build myself up, like I've got the engine, I can go the distance. Don't doubt yourself. Like, and sometimes that just gears you up. Or
Yeah.
Hardline, it was like such a all these guys that were there had done it a couple times or a few times, and here I'm coming in like with a bike. Like we built that bike with literally like my first practice run again at Hardline was my first shot on the bike, and obviously I'm coming into that like knowing the situation I'm in, I'm not prepared, but my skill like as a rider, I was like, I do deserve to be here. I've got the skills, like I can do it. And just tell myself stuff like that really makes a difference. Like gives me that extra push, that extra gear to do it because nobody kind of wants to be the first to hit anything at hardline because it's so terrifying. People want to see a few people do it first to see how it works out. But I was in that mindset if I was either second or third to hit everything. So it was like usually Bernard, Chaos, and then myself. And I was just like, I just put myself in that situation where I was like, I've just got to do it. I've got the skills. Just do it and see how it works out. Rather than my calculated self from previous years would be like, let's take a step back. Let's watch everyone do it first and think hard and long about how I'm going to do this. Whereas I just have a mindset now of just look at it and do it and trust my judgment and my process and skills. So that's been pretty cool. Like I feel like I've had a little bit more confidence
Yeah.
lately with that. So
Man, thanks for opening up there. That is some hard chunks of wisdom right there. And I think, it's so cool to hear from someone like yourself. And, for an everyday rider like me, I'm watching your YouTube videos and I'm like, man, this guy's, miles up here. He must just have natural talent. But it's so cool to hear that, some of the mental battles and the decisions you're making out there are really quite similar to, mental battles and decisions that even the everyday rider makes out there. I can relate definitely to your point there of like sometimes, it is really hard to be the first person to hit something. And sometimes we will maybe wait until like, 9 or 10 people roll through it. Then all of a sudden we've thought too much and we've started thinking
yeah,
about what could go wrong. And, we're in a worse state than when we started. So I
yeah,
really like, yeah, your story there of kind of learning to trust your own skill set, have that self-belief and, reinforce that through lots of like I can statements.
yeah. It's self like just self talking, like talking to myself does make a difference, and it's like having that faith and that trust in yourself as a rider and your ability. And I think a lot of people are there's certain say features on a track that an individual like the rider as an individual could do, but if they watch certain people or someone crash off that feature, immediately puts them off from doing it. And I
Mm,
used to kind of be like that. See someone do it and like, oh my God, they had a huge crash. I don't think I can do that anymore. And it's like, it's seeing that and then being like, that's not my problem. That's maybe their rider error, like our rider error. I can't let that translate onto my skill set. Like, but it's difficult to put that at the back of your head. A lot of people are easily spooked, and I understand that.
Yeah, I agree with that one as well. Sometimes seeing someone even just do a sketchy attempt can put this picture in your head and you're like, man, that feature or that run's
Oh yeah,
sketchy.
yeah,
Whereas if you hadn't have seen that, maybe you would have visualized yourself write it perfectly and then
yeah,
gone and write it perfectly yourself. So
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
a really important point, just to be conscious of not letting other people's actions or other people's thoughts that they're voicing, seep into your mindset there.
yeah, for sure.
Man, that's a great one. I'd love to shift gears a little bit here and talk about, your work now, because you're not only, going to awesome race events and racing on lots of different bikes, you're also putting loads and loads of work into your YouTube channel and into your social media stuff.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, what's your YouTube channel all about and who do you aim to inspire through that?
So the YouTube thing is honestly pure fun for me. Like I love editing, and I love trying to relate. Like I try and relate the best I possibly can to people. So although I've whatever professional mountain biker, it when I'm out riding my bike, like I said, I'll ride with anyone at the end of the day. It doesn't matter on who you are, your speed, anything like that, as long as it's fun. And I've always just tried to share like the best way to explain it is just share my experience I have. So whether that's like trying out a new bike or testing something or visiting a new location, like I want to showcase like that experience, the trails, how good it is, like so that people hopefully can be like, holy, like that looks amazing. I'd love to go. Or that bike looks good. He like says good things about it. It looks like it rides good. Like have some sort of an influence on people um that they can relate to almost. So even simple things like I think the YouTube for me is like a community too. Like I am pretty lucky to have like a really good following on there as far as the people support me, which I'm thankful for. And um, you get the odd kind of funny comment, but most of them are really supportive. And I've always went back to that thing like each person's entitled to their own opinion. And when I see people comment on my YouTube videos, I'm like, it's good that I think because they know that I'm probably going to see their comment and value that comment. And that's what I want. Like, I want to engage with my audience and make them, when they watch my video, feel like they're part of it, like part of the journey, part of the experience. So, yeah, my channel started out like I was still racing at that point. So it was all focused on that. But now it's kind of like more trips that I'm going on. Like this year's packed. We're only in March, but this summer is packed with stuff. And obviously the new concept of buying whatever frames I want really like is exciting for me. Like being able to ride whatever I want and to be able to talk about that freely and openly is cool. And I think people want to follow along as part of the journey.
Yeah, dude, I love that philosophy there, bringing your followers along and connecting them. And I just wanted to say there, sometimes I feel like I'm in your workshop with you as you're there, unboxing your new bike. And I'm like, you almost feel like I
Yeah.
know you. And that's rad for you to be able to, I guess, make that connection through YouTube.
Yeah.
And it is, really exciting again, seeing someone do, some different stuff in the mountain bike industry, be it on or off the bike. So yeah, like maybe tell us a little bit more. Not sure if you can give us a scoop about any of the bikes you're thinking of trying out next.
Yeah. So the last like week and a half, I've been bike shopping, which has been really cool. So I bought that Nuke Proof Giga, which was the kind of panicky, the stage that I was panicking, like, oh my God, I need to get a bike sorted for the street race. So that was a bit of like a spontaneous buy, but it worked out. Um, and then I've just been shopping online for bikes that are in stock for a start because that was a real problem like the last couple of years, right? Like it was hard to really get anything. So bikes that are in stock and bikes that I'm like, I've always wanted to try one of them, or I like the look of that. Let's give it a shot. So yeah, the last week or last 2 weeks, I think I looked the other day, I spent like £22,000 on just frames. But like that's so exciting for me. Like I love
Totally.
that. Like I have a couple. I have one bike that's downstairs right now that's going to get built next week, and I've tried to go for brands that are like, like a brand like Specialized. I haven't went that route. I've kind of more went for like up and coming brands, or I actually leaned a lot on my audience to give me help, which was kind of cool.
Okay.
So got hundreds and hundreds of comments, and a lot of people were saying the same bikes. So I was like, there's got to be something to that.
Totally, man.
And they would like to see that. So I'd quite like to try one. So yeah, I think I'm excited for, these bikes. I'm not sure how long I'll ride them for, but just kind of ride the Nukeproof for a while. The next bike's an Evil Insurgent, so I bought
Okay.
that,
That's exciting.
ride that for a while, and then jump onto another one, another one, another one. And
Wow.
yeah, it's really cool. Excitement levels are super high because I love bikes. Like getting a new bike is amazing feeling, right?
Totally.
But like it's crazy that I'm able to buy like 6 or 7 bikes for a year and I'm not going to be on one.
Man, it's a crazy situation, but I think it's a credit to all the years of hard work you've put into this to get to a point where you can be like, hey, I'm gonna ride whatever frame I want. I'm gonna
Yeah.
order 7 of them or however many.
Yeah, it's cool, and like I, I have to like I have to give credit to like all my current sponsors because they're the ones that are like excited on this whole kind of different path and new journey that I'm going on, and they're obviously a part of it, and they're getting to be a part of some really cool bikes being built. Um, and then obviously OnlyFans like are have created this opportunity for me to do something different and like
Mm.
have the backing and financial support to do something like this. So, and to do it comfortably as well. Like it's today I put a deposit down on a frame and I was like, that's me done. Like I'm not buying any more frames. Like I just can't.
Oh
There's only
man.
so many months in the year and there's only so many frames. And it's like I'm happy with what I bought and creates more opportunity for content and plans for the future too, rather than just sticking on the one bike. I can try all sorts of.
For sure. Dude, I think there is one more frame you're gonna have to add to your order. I know it's a bit more of a North American thing, but I've just got on a Ride Gorilla Gravity,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm absolutely loving it, man. They're
Really?
a yeah, locally made bike down in Colorado in the US.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is the most planted, fun thing I've ever rode. So definitely one to add to the list.
When I put up on Instagram, I put on an Instagram story, what bike should I get? And Johan Borelli replied, and he was like, a GG or Gorilla
Yeah,
Gravity.
yo, hands on the same bike.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
obviously I've spent a bit of time riding with him, and God, he's an absolute wizard on that thing. But
he is absolutely.
I think it's cool how they're made too. Like I don't really think there's another company or brand that makes the bikes the way that they.
Yeah, they've got their own. It's called Red Carbon, but it's meant to be 3 times stronger than any other carbon.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's really cool kind of hearing the company's owners on a couple of podcasts talking about it. Because they explained, every other bike brand probably would have went to this method of manufacturing because it is superior, they say, but the cost of retooling their factories is so high that they haven't done it yet.
right.
Whereas, GG being a new company just started out with these new tools from the beginning. So yeah, it's cool. I mean, my bike hasn't snapped yet, so so far so good.
Yeah, sweet. I'd be open to it. Like I'm honestly open to some message requests I've had have been kind of crazy, and I've not even got back yet. But just dudes that are like passionate about the sport and have like made their own bike, and they're like, "Would you ride it? Like, do you want to ride my bike?" So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
Right, man. Exciting times ahead. I can't wait to see all of these bikes be built up over the year. So I wanted to talk here a little bit about, setting yourself new goals. Obviously, you've made a habit throughout your career of putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. But I wanted to ask, how do you go about setting, say, goals or trying new things that are, challenging and fun, yet not so far out of your comfort zone that they're just like way too stressful and hard?
Yeah, I feel like when I was a racer, like full time, goals, like it was like such a common word. Like you were always working towards something, you always like had a goal, like whether it was a certain position in the overall championship or whatever. So I was very driven by that. Like every morning I woke up with a purpose, a different purpose, and that was to squeeze as much out of my training I possibly could to put myself in the best position I could. Whereas now I'm honestly chasing the goal of like happiness, if that makes sense. Like it sounds really cheesy, but dude, I just want to be happy, like mentally happy, like physically, like just want to feel good. And by like achieving that is me like riding my bike, getting to travel to cool places, having a good friend group, and a great like personal connection with my sponsors too. Like, yes, there's it's business, but it's also very easy to chat to them about not mountain biking stuff. And I think that's really important. So for me, it's difficult. Like I try and not get caught up in the whole goal thing of like a subscriber reach or a follower reach or anything like that. That can really swallow you up and eat you up in a big
Mm,
way. A lot of that's out of your control at the end of the day as well.
totally. Yeah. As soon as we start focusing on the uncontrollable, we're going to get stressed. So,
100%.
yeah. So what about goals like on the bike these days? You're not doing as much racing anymore, but you're obviously still out there riding all the time. Is
Yeah.
there things like, maybe getting better at cornering or doing bigger drops or anything like that that you set yourself?
Um, I have I guess I put myself out of my comfort zone. I feel like gets me opens up more opportunities and more doors for me. Definitely feel like, say, a few years ago or more than that, if someone was like, "Would you do Red Bull Hardline?" I'd probably say absolutely never. Would you do, the thing that Johan organizes, the Tour de Nord? Probably not, because I think that stuff's mental. And now that I've done all that stuff, I'm like, I want more of it. Um, this year, like as I'm taking a step back from racing, I have more on my radar. Like I want to push my skill set. I want to learn to backflip on dirt this year. Like a backflip to a lot of people that can already do it are like, oh, that's simple, it's easy. But I've never really done any tricks in my life, and I feel like adding that sort of stuff to my skill set would be really fun. And like I want to kind of cover that process too. So
Yeah, that's super exciting.
yeah, I'd like to learn a backflip. I'd like to learn to do other tricks. Um, and for me, that's just like pushing it a little bit. So I like that. But yeah, honestly, from the top of my head, writing skill wise, like what I just mentioned, those are probably this year what I'd really like to do, and just visit locations that have some big gnarly stuff. Like I really do like that. Put myself out of my comfort zone and achieving that. Like once you achieve something that's really challenging and terrifyingly nervous, the feeling after it is insane. Like I love it.
Totally, man. Yeah.
So just chasing that feeling, I guess.
That's so rad. Yeah, it's almost like you've learned over the years that hey, like putting myself out of my comfort zone, although it's scary, like it's good for me. And chasing that
Yeah,
feeling you get afterwards. I love it.
yeah,
So
hell
if
yeah.
like when it comes down to it and you're like, hey, look, I want to learn to backflip on dirt. That's my goal. I think I could do it. I think it's going to be fun. How would you break down that challenge and go about learning it?
I think off the top of my head, I'd like to do it onto like into like a foam pit first. feel like it's the safest option.
Totally.
Uh, and I think once I do it, once in my head, when I mentally go through it in my head how I would do it, once I'm getting the rotation like consistent, like say 10 times in a row, like landing both wheels at the same time, I'm pretty sure I could go to dirt and do it first time. I think.
Hmm.
I might be wrong, but just watching the process of other riders doing that, once they get it down on the foam pit and they're landing consistent, and they go to dirt, then they've got the technique. I think it's just that getting over that little fear of being upside down and like where to look. Like people always say when you're going up the takeoff to look back, like in the direction that you're going to go. I think that's important. But hey, I don't know who's going to teach me yet. I did
Man,
speak to Remy about it a little bit. But there's a guy that his name's Max Grayston. He rides for Orbea, did the
yeah.
Pink Bike Academy, or won that. I'd like him to teach me how to do it, to be honest, because I know he can backflip. So
Okay, shout out to Max. You got to make this happen.
that'd be cool. Yeah, I've already been speaking to him a little bit.
Okay. Right.
Um,
Well, I hope to see that stuff on YouTube as it happens. Man, that's a really cool goal, and I'm excited for you.
thanks.
So over the years, I'm curious in going about, learning and racing and this whole journey you've been on. Have you had any coaches or mentors along the way?
I've had a lot of coaches for the physical aspect. I felt like that the guy that I was recently with really taught me like discipline and like gave me a good perspective on priorities at that time, and like if you want to do really well, like this is what you got to sacrifice. And I think that taught me a lot of discipline, which I think still applies to now. Like if you want something, bad enough, you'll go and do it. You got to go out, get it yourself. So I'm a little bit disappointed to say that I've never had any mental coaching. And when I say I'm disappointed in that, I think it really could have benefited me, but at that time, probably too stubborn and thought I had everything under control, which I think I did, but you can always, sharpen the tool. So recently I've thought about going to see somebody just for a little bit of not necessarily mental coaching, but just open up and just like sometimes get things off my chest and weight off my shoulders.
Totally.
Uh, Someone was really kind enough that kind of is in that area, like kind of messaged me and reached out and offered to kind of help me with that. And
Oh, that's right.
said, absolutely, like I'd like to. Let's just try and set up something sometime. But it's weird, man. Like so many people have mentioned that to me. Like you should go and see someone. Like just it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Doesn't mean something's wrong. And I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And I don't know if that's like a male thing.
That's funny, man. Yeah, I think, male thing, societal thing, but there is this stigma
Yeah.
around, talking about our mindset, our feelings, and our emotions. And, honestly, I totally agree with what you're saying there. And that was a lot of the motivation. But behind myself, going down this track and learning lots about the
Yeah.
mental side of mountain biking and then talking about it here. So I think often just, voicing these things helps us, like you said, get it off our chest and also helps others in, showing people that you're not alone out there. You're not the only one going through these kinds of battles. We all do.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for sharing.
That's all right. And I think it's like I've developed over the years, like again, it's everyone is entitled to their opinion. I always say that, but I just think I'm not necessarily here to tell people what to do, but I just think some people should just be like more careful about what they say and how they say it to people, because if it's done over social media or whatever, social media is a platform where people really can say what they want and there's no
Hmm,
real consequence. And you just never know what's going on in that person's life that you could be being really passionate and hateful towards. And I just me, like, I'm sure it goes with everyone. Like, there's certain things that we see and we necessarily don't agree with or necessarily like, but you scroll on past it, or you might not agree with it, but hey ho, like, let them crack on with what they're doing. Um, and I just think it's a shame to see. I've known stuff in the past, like people being really not nice to other people online, and comes out later that that person's going through something or personally going through something. And, I'm obviously not going to say like anything too personal, but it's just got to be careful, like nowadays, I think. And just that whole, like, applying the whole be kind thing, like, is really important. And I've learned a lot through doing the social media side. You get hundreds and tens of thousands of people's opinions, and you're going to get the ones that are really nasty. And it's how I deal with that. Like, how do I process that? And I now have a way that I process it. And like I said, I do have thicker skin, but I'm just human at the end of the day. Like, I'm a mountain bike rider, and I make a living doing that. And there's people that don't think I should make a living from it and whatever and all that stuff.
It's crazy, isn't it, man?
Yeah, it's wild. I can't wrap my head around it.
Like, yeah, thanks so much for bringing this up, because I think it's a really important topic to talk about. I think so often people are there being keyboard warriors or whatever you want to call them, but like writing something that they think's funny without putting too much thought into it. And that,
Yeah.
potentially can be really hurtful and damaging to the person on the other side who's sitting there with 10,000 comments like this all coming at him or her. It's not nice. So I think, it goes back to the old saying, if you don't have anything nice to say, let's scroll on. Don't even, waste your time.
Yeah, I've said that, and obviously I've had people close to me, like devil's advocate, they're like, yeah, but you can't expect everybody to say something good. I'm like, I understand that, but it's also like, there's stuff I see online that I don't like, but nothing in my body is like, I've got to say this, like, I don't like this at all, like, my opinion matters that much. But it's each to their own.
Yeah.
Like, the internet's the internet, people can do what they want. But if people just take a step back and pump the brakes on it and try and be nicer, or just be a nicer person somehow,
Exactly. Yeah.
would be good. But hey, it's not always going to happen that way. So
Yeah. I think, like you said before, we're so lucky that I guess the positive comments and all of those great followers are the overwhelming majority. And the
yeah,
people that are out there, being dicks on the internet are the minority. So I know,
yeah,
there's so many people out there that love everything you put up. They're following along in your journey. They really look up to you in the
yeah.
mountain biking world. But I wanted to ask, like, who's someone that you look up to in the mountain biking world?
As a kid, really like watched hours and hours and hours and hours of footage of like Sam Hill. I feel like if you kind of ask almost like any mountain biker that kind of has maybe followed the racing scene, like Sam Hill's like a name that pops up all the time. But Sam Hill, um, just for his like, I looked at him when I was racing as a kid, and I was like, wow, like I would love to be able to do that and be in his position. Like, he gets to ride his bike for a living, and his style's like super cool to watch. But then, kind of like, as everything happened real fast, and then I was like up against those guys, like, it's more crazy to look back at now, but in the moment I never found it really too crazy. But when I look back now, from being a kid to then racing, literally in like behind the start gate in America, behind Sam Hill or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, like, that's wild. Like, I've beaten him like a couple times, whatever, which is great. That's a massive achievement for me. But um as of recently, I feel like I've had a lot of admiration, respect for Remy.
Hmm.
So Remy and Johan are two very good friends of mine, but I really look up to them as like an example of people who have it figured out and love what they do, and they'll continue to do what they're doing, and that's it. Like, and that's kind of the what I try and apply. Like, if I'm enjoying it and I have backing from my sponsors, and that's really kind of all that matters. Like, I'm able to fulfill and live my dream. But I lean on those guys a lot. Me and Remy like maybe speak once a week or twice a week, but we're always picking each other's brains about things. And he was one of the first guys that I spoke to about the whole OnlyFans thing. And
Okay.
yeah, he had, I don't want to drop his name and all that, but he was supportive with it and saw it from a business standpoint, as far as what it was doing for me and what it's doing for the sport, as far as, people might not think it's doing anything for the sport, but there's stuff I've not even spoken about or really had the opportunity to speak about that is happening. And like, I think it's cool for the opportunity I have, like, to be able to speak about mountain biking to an audience that like probably has no idea what mountain biking is. So obviously with the sponsorship and stuff, it's great. But like OnlyFans as a brand are asking me to go to like conferences and stuff in Dublin and Ireland, and it's like over 1,000 people going there, and it's all from, I guess it's like a conference that brands from all over the world come to and discuss and showcase their business plans, like who they're supporting, what their vision is. And OnlyFans have asked me to come on behalf of them, but also mountain biking too, and to explain the sport, what I do, what I enjoy about it. And we're talking like CEOs and companies, like Nike and Adidas and like UFC brands and NHL, like all these huge brands and companies coming to this event. And it's a good opportunity for me to network and meet other people. And I just think that's cool for the sport. Like, I can't remember the last time, or if it's even ever happened, that mountain biking has been brought up in a situation like that,
Yeah, man, it's huge kind of having mountain biking put on the world stage, like in that corporate kind of environment.
I think
Who knows what will come of it, if not only for yourself, but for others in the sport. It's so cool.
Yeah. So I'm really making it a habit this year to showcase that. So yeah, there won't be any riding going on, but we'll be filming like the whole thing from flying over there, getting there, meeting people, speaking at the conference in front of 1,000+ people. Like, that's a big deal for me. I'm nervous as hell, but I want to show that like it isn't just about the money. It isn't, just showing the logo off. It's bigger. Like, there's a bigger picture than that. And I think that'll be cool to show that, and that'll educate people. I think it will educate people that there's a bigger picture than what the eye sees straight away. So
Totally.
quite excited for that. But yeah, back to the Remy and the people who I look up to and who inspire me. I would honestly say Remy and Johan for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like, common theme there, like Remy, Johan, and Sam Hill, like, they're all guys that I see as like putting themselves out there, having fun and doing what they want to do.
Yeah,
so I think, such awesome people to look up to and have on your team.
Yeah, I think Johan from this personality side and the kind of crazy personality, not scared to kind of do anything. And then Remy's like methodical, super businessman. Like, he's got such a business head on him. And that speaks volumes. Like, that's why he's like one of the most, I'd say, most popular mountain bike riders in the world, like, and talented off the bike and on the bike. Like, his creative side is probably the best out there, I would say. You've also got like Fabio Widmer, who's doing a lot of stuff different, but yeah, it's definitely cool to have those guys to lean on for sure.
Totally, man. And I think, to Remy's credit, it's amazing, like talking about, what his business mind and his content creation has done. Because I'll speak to people who aren't even mountain bikers now, and they'll still say, "Oh, did you see Remy's video the other day?" And it's
Wild.
like, what? How do you know Remy? So really cool to hear how he's kind of expanded his audience so much. And man, I've got to ask, I heard from a little birdie that you might be moving here to BC at some stage in the future.
Yeah.
Is that still on the
Yeah, I
cards?
would love to. Honestly, within the next, I feel like I want to come over and test it out at least, but I have to do it within, like, I want to and have to do it within the next, I don't know, 6 months.
Yeah,
But
that's exciting.
it's a it's a big thing, but I've been waffling on it in all complete honesty. But there's no harm in like just testing the waters and coming over. So I would love to. It's been a plan. It's just I just have to pull the trigger on it, I
Just got to
guess.
buy that ticket. Man, you can do what every other expat here in BC has done and come for a season and then never leave.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. No, I'd love to. Somewhere on the sea to sky.
Yeah, you'd definitely be right at home on the trails here, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I'd love it. I'd love
Um,
it.
Man, exciting times ahead. I'm going to be respectful of your time here. But I did want to ask, we've talked about all kinds of different things in this conversation. If there's one takeaway that you hope listeners take out from this conversation and think about, remember, what would it be?
Um, I think, I mean, I hope when I talk to people, I always try and come across like the best way I possibly can, and it's just me being me. I feel like a lot of people build up a, they watch my stuff and my content, and they build up a expectation of who I am, and I always try and like, just show that I'm just a human being, like I have feelings and all that, it's I just hope that people can listen to the conversation and be like, you don't have to necessarily agree, but I am such a huge believer and pusher in like being a good person, a kind person, and just always think about what you're going to say before you say it. And because that can go a long way, it can literally change someone's day. It can in a bad way or a good way. So, um, yeah, I just hope that people can be a bit more open-minded and be kinder to people. If you're kind to people, they'll be kind to you back. So just that. And, if people want to follow along for my journey, then they can. That would be cool.
Totally, man. What was your YouTube handle and Instagram there?
Instagram's Lou Buchanan, and then my YouTube is, I think it's just Lewis Buchanan. If you just type in Lewis Buchanan,
Nice and easy. I'll put the links to those ones down in the show notes as well.
yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I could go on and waffle on, but just be kind, be nice, like goes a long way. And I hope to see everyone out on the trails, really. It'd be cool to I always love mixing with people that watch my stuff, and like I said, legitimately I'll ride with anyone, which is really cool. So I appreciate you having me on as well. It's nice to have a conversation like naturally and just speak about legit real things rather than sugarcoating and only talking about the good things, I feel like shows a bit more personality and lets people know a little bit more about what's going on. So thanks for allowing me to have that platform to do that.
Totally. And right back at you. Thanks for taking the time. It's been so cool to, yeah, dive into, a little bit of the behind the scenes, both of your racing career there and then in what you're doing now with the whole content creation and partnering with some brands outside mountain biking and doing your own thing. It's so cool to hear, how you approach all of these challenges, some of the tools you've used along the way, and then, just some of the backlash that you face as well. It's, nice to I guess understand, what goes on the other side of the coin, because so often we'll be the people down in the comments section, but we're not the actual content creator there sitting, by himself getting 10,000 comments. So it's
Yeah.
good to, I think raise awareness around that as well.
Yeah, I think it's raising awareness of just I hate to go around in circles. It's just sometimes it's just better to scroll past, if you don't like something.
Yeah.
Scroll past it and don't be that person that's being nasty or whatever. So
Yeah, man. Words of wisdom there. So on that note, like, yeah, if you don't have anything nice to say, go ride your bike.
Exactly. Yeah. Take the stress out on the trails, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Dude, thanks so much for your time. It's been an absolute blast. And I can't wait to see you on one of your new bikes here in BC in the near future.
Hell yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
What's up, guys? Just one last thing before you hit the trails. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe and don't be a stranger. I'd love to hear from you about any topics, particular episodes you enjoyed, and even about any guests that you'd like to hear me have on the show in the future. You can find me on Instagram at the_mind_mountain. This podcast, mountain biking, and mindset are all things that are very, very close to my heart. So I feel super grateful to be able to share these conversations with you. Much love to you all for taking the time to listen. See you next time.